Welcome, everybody. It is Tuesday night or it's Wednesday night. I'm only a day off there. One of the most frequently asked questions that we get from viewers is, are we in a buyer or a seller's market? And the answer that we always give is it varies. It depends on where you're at. We have both in the country right now. The title of the show tonight is that these markets or these cities have just flipped to a buyer's market. So we're going to go through a detailed list of properties that are cities that actually are in a buyer's market. And we're going to go through a few that absolutely are not. And these are generally where we're pulling them from as measured by Zillow's market heat index. They're showing what is a hot market, what is a cool market, and we're going to go through those lists. We're also going to jump into some additional data, some really cool data. Lance Lambert over at Resi Club has put a really cool collection of tools together, and we're able to dive a little bit deeper into the data. And what you're going to see when we pull that up and start going through it here in the slides is that it varies. It not only varies by state, but by county, by zip code. I didn't go all the way down to the zip because the chart starts looking a little bit wonky at that point, but we're going to jump into it. You may have noticed Mr. Jeb Smith is not here. He may be able to join us. He is at a conference in Florida. They had an event stretching into the early evening, so if he can get here, he will. If not, I'm going to do my best to hold up the conversation without him, to hold up both ends of the conversation. If you have any questions related to mortgage, buying or selling real estate, throw those questions in here once we get through the data, once we get through the slides. That's the most important thing we're here for. I'm also going to ask you guys some questions. It is that time of the year. We're getting towards the end of the year. Lots of New Year's resolutions for buying in January or in the new year. And we are going to get a jump start with the Educated Homebuyers Blueprint. We're going to do a couple webinars, one for those that don't want to wait until the beginning of the year. And we're going to do that in early December. And then we'll get another one or two for those of you who do hold off until the new year for your resolutions. But let's jump in here and get a look at these slides. So the first one here, 4 different views of the country and isolated where they're only showing the dots where it's a buyer's market. What you're going to see, we got some markets in Texas, we got some markets in Florida, and then a few a little further up, but mainly in the southeastern quadrant of the United States. These neutral markets are pretty much everywhere around the country. Sellers markets, looks like California, West Coast based, and then the Northeast. The Northeast is where we have the strong sellers markets. Strangely, they have the Bay Area here as a strong sellers market, and that's just been volatile. We've seen different reports saying that it is not a strong market there, but according to Zillow, currently as of today, strong sellers market in the Bay Area, and that has not been the case throughout the last couple of years. So let's look at specific markets here. Strong buyers markets: McAllen, Texas; Cape Coral, Florida; Miami, Florida; Jackson, Mississippi; Scranton, Pennsylvania. That one's interesting because that's the Northeast, and most of the Northeast is really strong. Northport, Florida; New Orleans, Louisiana; Austin, Texas; Deltona, Florida. So the things we're looking at there: Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Gulf Coast. You get a little bit here, Indianapolis, but you'll notice 50 is considered a neutral market, neither buyer nor seller. So even here, when we get to Indianapolis at 40.4, that's sort of middle of the bell curve, leaning towards buyers, but not a strong buyer's market. We have a bunch here that definitely are left of center over there under a 50. So let's look here and see strong sellers markets. And this is heavily weighted, besides the Bay Area, to the Northeast. These are the dots that we saw on that map: Rochester, New York; Buffalo, New York; Syracuse, New York; Hartford, Connecticut; San Jose and San Francisco; Bridgeport, Connecticut; Albany, New York; New York, New York. So those are the markets that are still strong sellers markets. We're going to dive in now and look at the maps and kind of give you some more insight, because those are cities. Most of you are probably not watching from those cities or thinking of buying in those cities. We're going to go through Jeb's charts, and then we'll roll down into a little further look at some data that will give us some insights into whether your local market is a buyer's or a seller's market. National single family inventory, the weekly change inventory fell a tiny bit, but you look here, it's been really flat going back till about July. So this is generally the time of year where it starts tailing off. So let's watch the next couple weeks and see what that does in terms of dropping off and tailing down. You're going to see this. It's funny, Jeb threw this in here, and I pulled the actual most current up-to-date one from Lance's info, but this is the one that he put in the newsletter earlier in the week. This shows active inventory, housing inventory for sale compared to the pre-pandemic level. So October of 29 or 2019, and then flash forward to October of 2025. So you see, it's a lot of what we just looked at that map. In the Northeast and upper Midwest, those are having less inventory than we had in 2019, less homes for sale. West Coast, still California down 9%, Oregon up 1%, Nevada up 6%. But then you start getting through there, Idaho and Washington, Colorado, Arizona, Texas, they're up anywhere, from 20 to 30% in terms of inventory. Florida up a bunch at 23%. So this is going to go a long ways towards telling you whether you're in a buyer's or seller's market. It's not the only metric, and we're going to go through it a little bit more detail, but interesting chart nonetheless. Huntington Beach down 3.3% week over week. Orange County down 8.6 week over week. So locally here for us in Orange County and in Huntington Beach, we are absolutely hitting that year-end downtrend in inventory. We're seeing less homes for sale, 4040 in Orange County, 244 in Huntington Beach. So national single family new listings. How many new listings do we have here? The new number is 50,827 for the week. And that's kind of at the low of the last 4 years that they're showing in this chart. Not a long ways below it, but kind of low end of new listings. So less new homes coming to market here. And it's a big dip week over week. But if you look back, 2024 was historically also saw a big dip week over week. Usually there's a reason there behind it. Jeb could answer that, but he's not here. So weekly pending sales, how many of them are going under contract? Also took a dip, but you can see if we look at 2024, it looks like there's some seasonality there where both new listings and pending sales take a dip. The spread continues to drop. We're going to see bad news is 10-year treasury is up week over week. Mortgages are pretty much flat week over week, and that's because those spreads are narrowing. Despite the 10 getting worse, mortgages have held in a little bit better. These, I believe, is inventory showing specific inventory or prices. No, that's definitely prices. Punta Gorda, Florida, every number, if you want to say a buyer's market for those wanting to live there, definitely lots of options. They are down 20% from the peak. Austin down 16%, Cape Coral down 15%, Northport, Bradenton, Sarasota down 10%. And again, we're looking at the same things here. Florida and Texas heavily weighted here on the list. We talked about the Bay Area being a strong seller's market right now. And this says San Francisco, Oakland, Fremont down 6% from peak prices. So again, very, very important for you to know your local market and how it's performing. It's going to give you much more information than national numbers, big things you're seeing in headlines, whether that's Wall Street Journal, CNBC, any of that fun stuff. So these are the charts that I wanted to put in to show you. So this is year over year home prices. Again, a heat map per Zillow, and this is by state. So the blue, the cool colors are showing you that home prices are up, and they go to the other end, red, which really Florida's kind of orange, peachy looking there, is the figure where they are down. And I'm going to have to zoom into this over here on my other screen just to even see these numbers. But California down 2% year over year, Florida down 5.4%. So you're looking at all of these numbers. A lot of areas down just marginally using the Zillow median home price. But when you look at the upper Midwest, the Northeast, most of those areas are up. So what is more helpful is when we zoom in here to the county level. Now you can see even within these states where they're up, there's still areas that are flat. When they're down, areas that are strong. Like there are blue areas here in Texas. Generally, when you think Texas, it's buyer's market. The market is down. True in some areas, not in others. So we've got red where it's down significantly year over year, and we've got blue where it's up year over year. But this map is generally telling us the same story. Active inventory. So how many homes are for sale? If you're a buyer, the more homes for sale, the more you have to choose from, the more likely you are to get a deal. So in looking at, it's the same chart that we looked at earlier that Jeb showed, less in the upper Northwest, upper Midwest and Northeast, and more throughout the Southeast. So when we dig in, it gives you, again, better information when we look at the county level Showing you here in California, most of that is looking at less inventory relative to 2019, but we do have some areas that have a little bit more. So throughout Texas, you can see more inventory. Most of Florida, more inventory. Most of the Southeast, especially the Gulf Coast, is flat to slightly higher. That's going to go a long ways towards telling you whether you are in a buyer's market or not. Median days on market. So not only are there homes on the market, are they taking a long time to sell? So again, the darker the colors there are on the greeny blue color there, the longer things are taking to sell. So Florida, no question there. That is telling us they have more inventory, they have bigger home, more of a decrease year over year in prices and more inventory. That's a pretty good sign for you there. If you're looking to buy a home, that it's a buyer's market. You're going to be able to dictate or name your terms. I would love to know Montana here. Montana had a ton of appreciation and not a lot of organic growth in terms of population, so additional demand. With a lot of people relocating and buying second homes could be a lot of playing into that. So if we dig in again, this is the county level. You want to know because even down here in Florida, we've got some sort of, we don't really have any of those darker gold colors down there in Florida, but we definitely have some creamish colors, lighter colors where there's not a lot of days on market. So it is very important for you to know down to the county level, even the zip code where you are looking. So hopefully the real estate professional, the mortgage professional you're working with has a pretty good pulse on that and can help you in terms of knowing what is the situation in the area you're looking to buy. People often confuse the current market with the last downturn because affordability is at very similar levels to what we had in 2007 before home prices corrected. So they wrongly assume that low affordability was what led to that correction. Low affordability will definitely put a ceiling on appreciation going forward, but it's not the thing that causes a downturn. So what we can see here, what I will say, the thing that causes the downturn is a large number of distressed properties, people who own homes and cannot afford them and need to sell them or lose them to the bank who is not in the business of owning them and needs to liquidate them. So you get these fire sale prices, big drops in home prices. We don't have that recipe, and this chart goes a long ways towards telling us that. If we look over here on the right side, especially during COVID, we had the blue bars like 2/3 of the size of all units, or the bar is 2/3 of the size of all of the bars combined. So telling us that about 65% of buyers had a 760 plus credit score. So the highest credit score borrowers. When we add in that gray bar, it's probably about 80%. So 720 and above. And even if we go down below that, the only bar of substantial size is the light gray bar. And at that point, we're over 95% of homeowners, home buyers and borrowers. So 620 to 659 barely represented for the last 10 years, and under 620 is truly just a blip there in terms of volume. And I can speak for it. Most of the borrowers at the low end of that scale, I have an FHA buyer, listener to the show from Michigan. He's at 620. He's doing 10% down. So it's an FHA loan because it's going to give him the best terms. We're putting a bigger down payment. So a lot of that stuff with the lower credit scores are people that have better bigger down payments, and or they're looking at a non-QM loan, a hard money loan. They're getting a loan, but it's because they have more equity despite the fact that they present a little bit more risk. And this is another look at basically that same data. So currently, to be at the 50th percentile, so meaning 50% of borrowers have a credit score 760 or above. If we take that down to the 25th percentile, 75% are above a 720 and 90% are above 660. And that jives pretty well with what I see. We get to talk to a lot of people, not only just close a lot of loans, we get to talk to a lot of people through the process, whether they're doing it with someone else, whether they just reached out with questions throughout the process, get a feel for what their credit scores look like. And that's pretty representative. And if we go back here in 2005, 2006, where was the 25th percentile? So we had 25% of borrowers at or below a 650 credit score. And if you ever, I'll try and find the chart because there's charts that show the probability of default based off of credit score. A 650 credit score isn't like twice as likely to default as a 700 credit score. It's like 5 times more likely to default and like 50 times more likely than that 780, 800 credit score. So, just a long way of telling you there's a lot less risk in the system right now, a lot less likelihood of people needing or going through the foreclosure process or having to sell because they can't afford their home, because there's more equity, better credit scores, generally stronger borrowers for the last 10 years, if not 15 years. Another thing that we get is people say, they don't. One of the things that we can say here on the show that triggers people when we talk about affordability, there's three things that go into it: home prices, incomes, and interest rates. So interest rates have come down a little bit. Incomes continue to increase, and home prices haven't changed much. We looked at the charts here, mostly flat, minor appreciation, minor depreciation, but pretty much flat year over year. Most major national indexes, we talk about national indexes, aren't super helpful, show anywhere from 1% to 2% appreciation year over year. So your mileage will vary, slightly up, slightly down. But this shows that with home prices flat, interest rates barely down, but incomes up, affordability is slightly improving. So if this continues to improve, one of the things we talk about a lot on the show, Bill McBride over at Calculated Risk, he wrote an article called 7 Years in Purgatory. And basically just talking about 7 years is nothing magical about it, but an extended period of time without appreciation while affordability recovers versus the big correction that we saw in 2007, 2008, because we don't have a recipe for it to correct violently and all at once, but it does correct over time, and it can do so in a number of ways that don't involve home prices dropping significantly. This one here, I thought it was interesting, just to mindset of you guys watching, mindset of other buyers. So survey, this is the Michigan Survey of Consumers, University of Michigan Consumer Survey. As to the economic policy of government, I mean, steps taken to fight inflation or unemployment, would you say the government is doing a good job, fair, or poor job? So you can see poor, that black line is through the roof. We're up over 60%. Good is down under 20%, and fair about the same levels, like 60, 20, 20. Most people do not feel like our government is doing a great job. So this is certainly not the political portion of the show. You can interpret it any way you want. I've said before, privately and here on the show, presidents get too much credit when things go good. They get too much blame when things go bad. That's true for Biden. That's true for Trump. That's true for all the presidents that came before them. But in 2026, what is the number one most important issue for voters? It's inflation, cost of living. And we sit here and say, they're saying inflation and unemployment, the government is not doing a good job. So if we look back in 2024, swing voters, inflation and prices were very, very important to them. Trump loyalists thought he did great. Swing voters, again, said 28% there. But it goes a long ways towards saying what's going to happen just in terms of the mood of the consumer and what people are thinking in terms of government policy. And if those in power want to get reelected, their best bet is to try and make this better. So we didn't get anything out of the Supreme Court today, but the legality of the tariffs is there in question. If it were not for the tariffs, inflation would be much better, and Trump would be getting much of the same credit that he got from 2016 to 2020, which was, hey, when Trump was president, inflation was low. Biden comes into the office, inflation is high. So correlation doesn't equal causation. It doesn't mean that Trump made inflation low. Trump largely got reelected because people remembered inflation being very low during his first term, and it was high during Biden. They go, hey, let's go back to the guy where inflation was low. And his primary policy over the first year of his presidency has been tariffs, which has caused an increase to inflation. We did get some data today. It's because it's private data, not government data. Normally this Friday, we would get the jobs report. The Wednesday before the jobs report, ADP always releases their jobs report. 42,000 jobs. That was a beat. I believe the projection was for 28,000. So 42,000, everyone cheered. It was a strong jobs report. You can see here from the chart, it is anything but a strong jobs report, but it was a beat relative to expectation. So that's what's most important anytime we're looking at economic data. It's not the actual raw data and what happened. It's what did it look like relative to expectations, because this is clearly a downtrend where employment is continuing to get worse. Still positive, still above zero. We had a few months below there, but the trend is not looking good for us. So right now, I hinted a little bit earlier, That 10-year treasury is up week over week. Last Wednesday, we had the Fed meeting. The Fed cut. It was a hawkish cut. They came out, basically said, don't expect that we're going to see more Fed cuts going forward without data to support it. And we have a government shutdown, so we don't have a lot of data. So in the last week, this is a different look at that Chicago. This is the Fed funds futures, and this is a different look at it. So today is the dark blue line. You see it saying 60-40 as to whether we get a cut next month. Well, last week we were at an 83% chance. So we've lost about 25% of the probability in terms of market participants, at least in the Fed funds futures market, of what they are expecting going forward. So we need the government to reopen. We need to get some data. And if the data is strong, we're going to see interest rates continue to tick up. If the data picks up where we left off and continues to show weakness, we should see some improvement from here. So today was a bad day. I mean, this isn't a horrifically bad day. We're still at a pretty good level, about 415, 416 on the 10-year. But our wonderful, pretty down channel there was definitely violated to the upside. That yellow line was a pivot here, just an important point where we've touched and is held. It did not hold today, and that was largely just on ADP data and ISM data. The ISM data was a beat across the board. All of the components were better than expected, but none of them were like blowout beats. But it was enough, when it's the only data we have, that it gets given more weight, and the bond market looked at it and said, yeah, we don't like it. So if we don't get back inside of that down channel soon, we could be looking at a new sideways trend here at a slightly more elevated level. What does that mean for mortgage rates? So per Mortgage News Daily today at 6.37, I think we're like 6.34 last week. A week ago was 0.10 lower, so 6.27. So really up 1/8% in interest rate over the week, and that's pretty close to the lows. Is up 1/8. 30-year fixed for good borrowers still under 6.5. Most quality FHA VA buyers are under 6%. So rates still good. Some of the best levels that we've seen were about 0.5%, almost 2/3% lower than where we were this time last year. But definitely that downtrend is taking a pause until we get some additional data. So a reminder here, this is the map. This is where we can help you if you are in the market. You have questions about your mortgage. You want to get pre-qualified. You want to get pre-approved. The pink red states there are states that our team can cover. I either am directly licensed there or one of our team members is. The blue ones, we can get you connected to experts in all of those states that handle your financing the exact way that we do. The things I wanted to point out and ask you guys a question. So if you are here, throw in the comments if you would be interested in the webinar. Some of you are at different points. I know some of you guys already own, but we are going to be doing a webinar either the 9th or 10th of December. It's Tuesday or Wednesday. So let us know. If we were to do it Wednesday, we probably need to do it Tuesday because we do the live here. So we would have to go from 5 to 6 with the live, and then 6 o'clock Pacific. So 9 o'clock Eastern. Fairly late for people looking at that. So we're probably looking 5 or 5:30 Pacific, 8 or 8:30 Eastern, and looking at Tuesday night, the second week in December. So if you're interested, let us know. If you want, I had the sales page, the opt-in page for you to register set up, and I kindly refreshed it before I actually saved my results. So I didn't get it up, but by next week, we will absolutely have the registration page up where you can register. If you want, shoot us an email at info@theeducatedhomebuyer.com, and we will get you on the list, and I can shoot you a direct email once the registration page is up, or we can just get you registered. Is it? I'm not wanting to remove myself. I'm wanting to remove this. So let's jump in here and see what questions we have. So miscellaneous of the whatever, a regular viewer says, OMG, new music, love it. That was not actually new music. That was old music. Josh is not normally in charge of kicking off the intro there. Jeb does that, and I picked the wrong one. I picked the old one. So that's new old music. Dixieland Productions always here. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for the notification. Smash the thumbs up. We greatly appreciate that. Marcus Doswell says, thanks for the great info. Glad you're finding value in it. If you guys have any questions, we don't have a whole lot of questions jumping in here just yet. But if you have some questions, throw them up and we will absolutely get them all answered for you. Marcus, I'll be talking to you here shortly. Hopefully we can get you into a home here sooner rather than later. So let's look here. The Dungeon Dojo comes back and says, how many days on market before you feel sellers start considering below ask offers? Jeb is more experienced at this, and I can parrot his answer that I've heard him give many, many times. And the answer that he talks about is it varies. What is normal for that market? If something's been on the market 30 days and your average days on market in that area is 60 days, they've probably been coached and told to expect this is how long it's going to take to get your property under contract. It also is going to vary how much activity have they had. If they had 20 showings and a couple people put lowball offers in that they didn't like, or if they had no showings and no offers. So it really it varies. Now, if the thing's been on the market 180 days and it's in a price point and in a market where the average days on market is 45 to 60 days, starts telling you they should be receptive to a lower price. But a lot of times, why you have these outliers that have been on the market a lot longer than anything else in their local market is simply the fact that you have an unreasonable seller. If they were reasonable, they probably would have accepted an offer, and they may have got an offer early that they should have accepted. Jeb will also always tell you the first offer is generally your best offer. It's not a hard and fast rule, but a lot of times people will reject the initial offer that comes in, and it's someone that saw the property, liked it, made an aggressive offer, and everything that comes after it is not as good. So I'm sure you were looking at a more or wanting a more specific answer to that, but it truly it varies, and that's what the value of dealing with excellent professionals. Your real estate professional should be pretty adept at picking up the phone, starting a conversation with that listing agent, and at least picking their brain for as much information as they can get about that to help update and inform you. So Aleutian drones. Aleutian drones, are you actually up in the Aleutian Islands? My father-in-law and mother-in-law lived in Dutch Harbor up in the Aleutians for those of you that see the deadliest catch on there. Alaska Ship Supply is the giant grocery store where the ships get served. So he ran that for the better part of 10 years. So it's a very interesting part of the country. But the question is, in general, is there a period of time I have to wait before closing before I can refinance, thinking in the event that rates drop fairly quickly after I close on my house? So pretty much there are no loans in anymore other than like non-QM loans, bank statement loans, DSCR stuff, things outside the box. So your normal Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, even bank portfolio loans, anything that falls under the qualified mortgage guidelines, there's no prepayment penalties. So if you buy the house and 5 days later you win the lottery, you want to write a check and pay it off, no penalty, nothing preventing you from doing it. If you buy and 6 weeks later rates are incredibly low, nothing preventing you from going to another lender and refinancing. Now, there's some restrictions in terms of using a new appraised value of taking cash out, but just a rate and term refinance, same value, lower interest rate, nothing prevents you from doing that. Now, as a lender, important for me to tell you guys, we have something called an early payoff penalty. Most people do 0-point loans. They do not pay for their loan. That doesn't mean that we do the loan for free. It means that we're paid when we sell that loan into the secondary market. And the people that buy that have a contract that says if this pays off within 180 days, you're going to pay us back the money that you paid us for that loan. So from that perspective, if you feel like the person treated you fairly and did a good job and it's just a market-based opportunity, go back to the original originator that worked with you to do that loan and tell them, hey, this is what I'm seeing. The market has dipped. It's a 0.5%. We have a $500,000 loan. That's real money. We would like to take advantage of that. They're not going to love it. They're not going to like it. But if you go back to them and do the loan, at least they can do the loan and make money there to recoup the cost of the early payoff penalty. This does not happen often, but we had one for a listener to the show. I don't think Bronson watches anymore since he got his home. But we closed in July, and right from the day that thing closed, rates just precipitously dropped. And then he also made a choice to pay his loan down from the high balance to the standard balance, and it made like a 0.75% difference. It was a huge difference on an almost $800,000 loan. We had to do it. Just had to do it. It's the right thing to do. So what I would say, give your mortgage originator the opportunity to do the refinance. If they drag their feet or feel like you feel like they're slow playing you or don't want to do it, by all means, get a second opinion and see if something else is out there, because there are lenders that they're going to tell you, oh, you need to wait, or there's 180 days, or the rates aren't quite there. Hopefully you had a good relationship. Hopefully they're a quality professional, and hopefully they'll do the right thing by you. Doesn't happen often, but definitely we do have to do it sometimes. So, long time viewer Barry May, how far in advance can you prepay home insurance? I don't think they will ever let you go more than a year in advance. You pay for 1 year premium, and then that renewal will come up. I've never seen anyone pay it any longer in advance than that. So we probably need to get an insurance agent, an insurance expert on here to walk us through that. I'll give a little more color and a little bit more detail on that because it's a question that comes up a lot here on the show, or not on the show, just in real life. People will say, well, what is this? You have 1 year of homeowners insurance premium on there. I got my own policy. It's like, yes, you got your own policy. That is the first year premium for your policy. If you're going to impound or if you're not going to impound, you have to have that first year premium. So if you're going to impound your taxes and insurance, they're going to collect another 2 to 3 months. People go, well, here's my insurance here. Why on my loan estimate or my closing disclosure is there another line item saying 2 or 3 more months? Why am I paying 15 months? That's to make sure that in 12 months, when the renewal comes due, that we have enough money in your impound account. So if you think about this, if you close today, November 5th, you're not going to make a payment on December 1. So you make your first payment January 1. It's been almost 2 months. So now we only have 10 months till that renewal comes due. So that's why they're always going to collect a little bit extra. And then you're always going to have an aggregate adjustment. I won't bore you guys and go through the details with that, but that's to make sure it's a credit in your favor. Because when you have, X number of months of property taxes and 2 or 3 months of homeowners insurance, they have to look forward 12 months. And across the next 12 months, are they going to have more than the law allows in your impound account? And if so, they need to give you a credit at closing. So it's always going to look a little bit high, but when you adjust it and you show that aggregate adjustment, it is right. So trust me that your loan originator is not messing with you, not trying to overcharge or any of that fun stuff. So we don't have a lot of questions. Why don't you guys who are watching? So Aleutian Drones follows up and says he's in Sandpoint, which is pretty close by. Why don't you guys throw in where you are watching from and tell us if you think it is a buyer's or seller's market in your area? I realize you guys aren't professionals. You're not watching it every day, but from your perception of what you're seeing locally, for sale signs, just general market activity, friends and family buying, selling, what are you seeing in your market and where are you guys watching from? But a lot of times we get to the end of the show and there's still questions left to be asked. It may be because Mr. Jeb is not here. No one wants to ask questions. But if you have a question, just anything mortgage, real estate, finance related, if it's just about the economy in general, you want to know what we're seeing. I am watching closely right now the Supreme Court, the questioning today from the Supreme Court justices shows that they are dubious of Trump's claims, the Trump administration's claims that the Emergency Powers Act allows them to implement tariffs without going through Congress. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. The Trump administration is saying that means we would have to make refunds. We would have to refund a lot of the tariffs that were collected. Almost everything they've done, there's another path. There is another route that they can get to. It's just a little bit more difficult, cumbersome, time intensive. So from that perspective, if the tariffs go away, or at least the tariffs go away for a temporary period of time, it should be helpful. Again, it's just more disruption and uncertainty. That big picture, forget the politics of it. I don't care. But big picture, what we definitely care about is the uncertainty, because it's hard for the market to adjust without being certain. So Marcus Doswell, who I said we're going to talk to here, pipes in SoCal and definitely a seller's market. And what I will say, Marcus, and anyone else here in Southern California, not every home in Southern California is in the seller's market. But we talked about this: affordable entry-level homes, median priced homes and lower. And if they're nice, especially the ones that are nice, upgraded, clean, they are absolutely selling quickly and oftentimes at a premium. Have another buyer that is probably getting their offer accepted tonight. They went 20 over list. That was a 970, 950, and they're probably going to get it for 970. Another listener to the show here. That's not uncommon in the more affordable price points. And I realize in certain parts of the country, you might hear 970 and go, you people are nuts. That is not affordable. Heather here in Inglewood. It's a seller's market from what I see around my neighborhood. I would say again, Inglewood is a very nice area. Um, it's been redeveloped, revitalized a lot over the last 10, 15 years, and there's expensive homes in Inglewood with all of the new activity there. So a lot of what applies to where Marcus here is in SoCal, I would say the same. Joyce is in Virginia. It's part of that Northeast that we talk about, and a strong seller's market. So not surprising to hear that. Dixieland up there in Minnesota, which is the upper Midwest, and we talk about upper Midwest, looks pretty strong. But he's saying price is neutral, not going up or down, and that's fair. I would say that's probably pretty accurate from my view. Not that I would know more than them being there, boots on the ground. Illusion Drones follows up with Sandpoint and says there might be 3 places for sale in Sandpoint right now, but maybe less buyers. So probably a neutral or a buyer's market. Tom Collins, also in Southern California, but a different market, more inland, a little bit more affordable. Riverside County. Market feeling, buyer versus seller, seems to match the pricing of the house. Realistic price sells fast. 2023 asking price. Welcome to your listing lasting on the MLS. And that's true. We talked about when can you cut someone's asking price. When you have that unrealistic seller that's pricing like the greatest sale of the super updated, improved, dialed in home that sold in 2023 when the market was a little bit stronger, those people are getting a different look at it. We got another comment here from Texas, Edinburgh, Texas, Deep South, seeing lots of price cuts. Already own my house, but need to upgrade. Thinking of speaking to a lender early January. Should I continue waiting into spring? Definitely, there's a lot of people who are doing the same thing. You may be watching saying, hey, I don't really want to talk to anyone here through the holidays. I'm not going to do anything till after the holidays. My belief is it's never too early to have a conversation. So whether you just do it on your timeline, when the time is right for you, reach out to us, reach out to a local lender, whatever works for you there. Simply Marvelous says, I'm from East LA, should have the keys this Friday, hoping in a year I can refinance maybe at least 4.5% to 5%. Got the house for 540 with a gift of equity of 120. Gift of equity, we should probably do an episode on the gift of equity. A normal seller can't give you a gift of equity. A family member can. We end up doing 4 or 5 of them a year. It's something that comes up when you buy a home from a property, an appreciated property from a family member, and get a gift of equity. It can put you in a very, very good spot. So congratulations on that. And you and I both would hope that that interest rates would get down to that level. Barry's back with another question here. What's Josh's end of year guess on interest rates? We always hedge this, and it's always a difficult projection. But right now, without the data, it's really tough. The one thing I didn't throw up, I actually snipped it and I didn't put it in the slides, is Truflation. It's some of the only data that almost 0.2% week over week. So it's picking up that tariff impact. They also, a lot of the data that goes in and feeds their algorithm is government data. So maybe we're seeing some aberrations there and them not having data. But I would like to see a couple of jobs reports, much like the Fed would like to see before December, to know where we're going. My base case would be we trend sideways between now and the end of the year. It could be just some pessimism, in production wise, and helping folks like you lower your interest rate and get to a better spot. I would love to be able to do that for 5, 6, 8, 10 extra people between now and the end of the year. I kind of see it trending sideways. So check back in January and we'll see what that looks like. And it should largely be dependent on when the government gets back online and when we get some more data. So, whoa. Joey Lawrence out here says, what do you think of the Zillow Chat GPT integration? I have not played with it. A lot of the integrations to me leave a lot to be desired. YouTube, Google through Gemini into the YouTube studio for YouTube channels. And we tried to get some information about you guys, about our audience, viewing habits, what things they want to hear about, what you want to hear most about. and it's a little bit janky. I would bet that Zillow Chat GPT integration is similar. And one of the reasons why I don't dig too deep into it is Lance over at Resi Club has a very deep integration into that data, and we can slice it and dice it and look at it a lot of different ways without going into Chat GPT. In general, I love AI. We use it heavily in terms of creating content, not it's not one of the things where you go and say, hey, write my weekly newsletter to my audience. It's that it is trained on every weekly newsletter I've ever written. I'll pull 5, 6, 7 different articles that I'm going through in the week, give it the angle that I want it to take, and it'll go through with the first draft. And a couple, 2, 3, 4 iterations later, something that used to take 2, 3 hours can get done in 45 minutes to an hour and still be my voice, my thoughts, my ideas, my research. So I love it. Should be something good over the long haul. Here in the short run, I don't know. Maybe we'll play with it and come back and give you an answer on that next week. So Briz10s981, what do you guys think of Sacramento? If you're still here, give me a follow-up question on that. What are we talking about? Do I like Sacramento? Is Sacramento a nice place to live? Is affordability good? Is it a buyer or seller's market? A million questions there that we could answer. We have a lot of buyers that go to that area because you're close enough to the Bay Area. It's a major metro, right? You have the Sacramento Kings, so you have professional sports, major concerts come through town. You have some culture there, and if you're not cultured enough, you got a pretty short haul over to the Bay Area. So it's a good market. It's a good market. A lot of people like living there because it is much more affordable than some of the areas closer to work. But with that, much like the Inland Empire here in Southern California, long commute times, a lot of traffic, growing. So there's pluses and minuses from that end. All right, guys, we're about 45 minutes into it. It definitely looks like we're not going to get Jeb to be able to jump on with us. If you have any questions, throw them in here. We are, like I said, we are working on our roadmap for the rest of the year of what that looks like to educate and empower you guys to make good decisions. We have the webinar, the Educated Homebuyer Blueprint. We had more than 10 listeners go through that process and end up buying a home this year. And most of them felt that it just made things smooth, simple, easy, because they were able to get the education of what does the process look like, and then also get connected with a team that's going to manage it and help them with that. So if you are interested, reach out to info@theeducatedhomebuyer.com. I will send you a link as soon as I get the registration page up. You see the crawl at the bottom of the page, jebsmith.net/start. If you're looking at buying, refinancing, selling, you need help with your mortgage, with your financing. If you need help with your real estate, use that link. Jeb can get you connected to a realtor or his team here if you're local to Southern California. We showed the map here. I can actually throw it back up for you guys. But all of those pinky red states there, we can help you directly in. So talk to someone from Ohio earlier. We have a loan going in Michigan. What else do we have? We had a Georgia refinance coming, closed one last week in Texas, and another one will be closing here in Texas. That buyer buying a short sale. I haven't seen a short sale in a long, long time. We have a listener to the show that she has been waiting about 3.5 months for Veterans United, who owns the loan that is subject to the short sale, getting us the approval, and we just got the clear to close on that. So Shantae, if you are listening, congratulations. Should have your loan docs out for our closing on Friday. But if you guys don't have any additional questions, we'll wrap it up for tonight. Go to the map. If we can help, use the link, jebsmith.net/start. We will be back next week with another topic and be here to answer your questions and give you the latest economic data. And hopefully that involves some government data. But that's probably wishful thinking. Even if they open up today, in 7 days, we probably won't have much of that data because they got to get back to work and get it compiled. So again, thanks for watching. Reach out if we can help. Adios, amigos.